You have Patrick Findaro here, joined by John Prothro. He's the CEO of Foot Solutions, a franchise that's started in the U.S., expanding in the U.S. as well as abroad. John, thanks for joining today.
I'm happy to be here.
Tell me a little bit about your background. You played baseball at Vanderbilt, worked in finance, and then eventually made your way into the retail and franchising space.
Yeah, it's probably a longer story than you have for the podcast, but I was a Vanderbilt baseball player before that was cool, but I'm living off their glory now. Go Doors. Yeah, I studied organizational communication, which a lot of folks go into consulting for that type of degree, and then got a job, worked my way into the M&A world, working as an intermediary. So doing buy and sell side transactions, working a lot on the buy side and also co-investing on some of those deals. And the way I found myself here was we were raising a small private equity fund, a group of friends and myself, and we were going to buy a portfolio of companies. And I met the owner of Foot Solutions, loved the model, loved the niche, looked at the macro trends, and said, "Man, this is something that could really be interesting." So I called my friends and said, let's buy this one and I'll run it." So
You're going
that's the
all
best
in.
way to become the CEO, by the way, is to install yourself.
That's true. And tell me, what is Foot Solutions all about?
Thanks for asking. Foot Solutions is what we call a foot wellness retailer. We're one of the few, or one of really a couple of companies that are national retail-based foot care. So it's a caring expert service, really highly trained people in our stores. They look a bit like shoe stores, but sort of juiced with some high-tech foot analysis equipment, digital scanning, 3D printing, and staff that has an abnormal amount of training on foot biomechanics and that sort of thing. So we're a service company that knows what we're talking about with feet, and we sell product that truly custom orthotics and healthy footwear.
What's the persona? Like, who are you marketing this to?
Well, we're not selling Gen Z Nikes. And you look like a guy who's probably wearing the cool Nikes. I got lots of friends like that. But no, we're selling generally baby boomers and retirees. And it's not because not everyone needs to be balanced and aligned and properly fitted with footwear, but it's because people start to hurt a little bit and start to feel a little bit achy. I pulled my back when I was 40 years old, like 2 days after I turned 40, doing laundry, and it's that kind of customer we're looking for. You start to feel like you're breaking down a bit, and you think, "Hey, what could I do to improve my health and keep me, happy and comfortable on my feet?"
So I'm a total novice, but I do try to be barefoot as much as possible. And obviously, in the modern society, I can't walk out the house barefoot, but around my house and, go to the beach a lot and certain outdoor spaces. But what are some tips for people in this space, and why is this important, and why should people think about it before they have an event like you had?
Well, that's a great question. So your feet are very, very complex machines. If you think about the way your feet were designed, they were designed to walk on Earth. So when you're at the beach and you're walking on the beach, your feet are hitting that ground and it's filling up the arches and filling and perfectly balancing your foot, so to speak, right? But we live in a world of concrete and tile and hardwood floors and that sort of thing. And so having something underneath your feet as you're walking around that sort of plays the role that the earth used to play
Hmm.
is important. And if you think about, it's not just foot pain you can deal with, because if you have a misalignment in your body and your gait, that can cause joint pain, cause wear and tear, in your hips, even cause back pain. Some people have leg length discrepancies, for instance, and your back sort of compensates, your body sort of compensates for that, and a lot of times cause tension in your lower back. So there's a lot of things that start from the ground up and are related to your health that you may not recognize until you start hurting. We always say your feet are the foundation of your health. Let us take care of them for you, and we really believe that.
So I would imagine, like, if I was going through like the experience of needing, support with my feet, maybe if there was something serious, I would first go to a podiatrist Do you work with podiatrists, or do you usually go directly to consumer?
So we do get a lot of referrals from podiatrists, orthopedists, some chiropractors, physical therapists. We get a lot of referrals. Some podiatrists will do custom orthotics. A lot of times those are outsourced. A lot of times those are sent to us. If we have a podiatrist that's in town that wants to do custom orthotics, we'll say, look, just send them to us for healthy footwear because they're normally not selling footwear, and a lot of their patients need to get in the right footwear. We're allied with the medical community. We're not competitors with them. At least we try not to be. But most podiatrists are more interested in procedures and not that interested in doing custom orthotics.
Or like basically preventative? They're not as work, I guess, focus on the preventative side. They're more just helping someone that already has a serious problem.
Yeah, I mean, well, even if they were, the people aren't coming to see them. You don't go to the podiatrist to get a well check like you do your general practitioner.
Well
Maybe you
said.
should. Maybe I just started a
Yeah.
new line of business for them.
So with Foot Solutions, what are we talking about in terms of like investment amount, square footage, ideal type location?
Well, that's one of the things we loved about it when we were looking at the business to buy. So Foot Solutions is pretty low cost to own and operate. You're looking at probably around 1,500 square feet. We've had stores that were a little over 900 square feet and doing
Oh,
$750,000. So you do not have to be in a large space because, you know, if you're running it properly, about 30% or so of your sales is going to be on the custom orthotic side, and there's no inventory associated with that. So we operate in about 1,500 square feet. We like lifestyle centers, but you don't have to be in the nicest lifestyle center. You don't have to be on the best retail road. You want some walk-in traffic because it's basically like having a free billboard.
yeah.
But our rent is usually pretty decent and not out of this world.
What do you want to
And
see
then
like rent in terms of like as a percentage of sales?
we like to keep occupancy costs 10% or less of
Okay.
sales. To open a Foot Solutions, our build out is nice and it's clean. It has a sort of a retail slash medical sort of feel to it. So there's it's not a lot of plushy and it's not like going to Nordstrom or something. There's no fancy couches in there, but it feels nice, and it's not a real expensive build out. A lot of our build outs are $35,000, of course the landlord often pays for a big chunk of that. In order to get started, including the franchise fee, it ranges in the FTD. The range is anywhere between 130 and 190 some odd thousand. But most of
That's a
that is
great
your
entry
inventory.
for retail.
Yeah, most of that is inventory too. So kind of depends on how much where you're going to put your store, then determines how much inventory you feel like you need to buy up front. Because if you're in a big lifestyle center and there's a lot of retail around, you probably need to buy closer to $100,000 in inventory. If you're in more of a destination spot, you can get away with starting with 60 or so. So most of that is just putting cash on the shelf, and that includes the franchise fee. So we like the way it's set up economically.
And can you share any information in terms of like the financials, whether average figures, or you shared 30% custom orthopedics? Like how else do franchisees make money?
So it's generally between what we call retail, which would be the shoes and socks and sandals and things like that, and that generally speaking, and I don't know how much I can say, outside of the FTD, our lawyer's still getting on to me for
Sure.
saying certain things, but that's
People
generally
can
in
always
kind of,
follow up with a franchise if
yeah,
they're
that's right.
interested again.
We assume about a 50% gross margin on that. We actually buy it at better than 50% gross margin in a lot of cases, but when it comes to footwear, you're discounting seasonally as stuff sort of starts to come off the shelf. And then on the custom orthotic side, you're talking about high 70s in terms of gross margin. So depending on the product mix, generally speaking, we're kind of in the 60%, high 50s, low 60s on the on gross profit. And then your main expenses are your payroll and your rent. And so, if
What's
you
payroll look like, and how many people are
yeah.
you staffing?
So when you first start, you'll start with two people plus an hourly. So you'll have two
Okay.
full time plus an hourly. We love the model. I think probably my favorite model is to have an owner who is kind of an operator, but gets it set up with a staff, but also can comes in as that hourly person on occasion, but works on the business rather than in the business. We do have a model where we run it for the franchisees on an investor franchisor managed model, which is kind of interesting. People have been real interested in that because we're the best franchisees are the ones that follow the model. Well, the people that follow the model the closest are the ones who invented it, right? I shouldn't say invented it because a lot of the franchisees had a lot of input on that too.
Wow, that's interesting. There's not many franchises that have been around that long and have 40 plus locations that are also able to help support with the day-to-day operations of the business.
Well, we have a pretty big. I mean, we're still a small business, but we have a pretty big franchisor entity. We have 18 corporate-owned stores, or 19 now corporate-owned stores, and because of that, we have enough scale to have about 30 plus people on the corporate side, just on the support side, and that's real important to us. That doesn't include store staff. That's just folks who are able to support the franchise system. So we're set up pretty well to be able to do that.
And do you have any franchisees with multiple locations?
There are two.
Okay, solid. And do you foresee more franchisees opening up multiple locations? Because it seems like the margins are sufficient where the owner doesn't have to be there all the time. Like there are definitely franchises where you buy yourself a job and the revenue is like 200K, 300K, and you can't really get out of the business. But what we're
Yeah.
talking about today and offline, it seems like there's sufficient margin where the owner can really be going around to multiple stores and probably eventually hire an area manager.
Yeah, and so we just a little of the history of the business. It was around 20 years before myself and some and our investors bought it, which I mentioned. So we've owned it now for 3 years, a little bit plus. And when we got in, we didn't feel like there was enough infrastructure to support selling franchises and then supporting them. So we spent a lot of time building up the corporate infrastructure to be able to do that. And we started selling really in January of this year. Uh,
That's
and
exciting.
uh, and all we've sold so far is multi-unit operators. So these are folks that they're cashed up, professional, competent business owners. Um, we do have a lot of folks who are mom and pop, buy yourself a job, and they're very passionate about foot care and helping people and getting people healthy on their feet. They get a lot of hugs. It's a real, I'd say, fulfilling sort of thing. The multi-unit operator model, the multi-unit investor model is real important, I think, as we get larger and larger, because I like to have a real close one-on-one touch with the franchisees. And if we get up to 200 locations and there's 200 franchisees,
It's
it's going
hard.
to be hard to really, it's going to be hard to share my cell phone number with all 200 of them. Right now it's manageable and everybody calls and we talk and I love it. But as we grow, scaling it's going to be with less franchisees per store, I would say.
And what do these franchisees look like? Do they already have a successful business that's independent? Do they already operate other franchise brands? Are they coming more from a corporate life?
I mean, it really runs the table. Really runs the table. We have a lot of people who are in the healthcare space already, nurses and folks like that. Who, whenever they want to buy a job, they that's the kind of people that come along. People who are physical therapists or
I can
nurses.
see that.
But
It's
I
a
mean,
grind
probably
working at a hospital. Like it's kind of a young person's game, and probably especially a lot of those practitioners
yeah,
know
yeah,
like they see it because they've been on their feet all the time, and they're like they're probably like a top customer.
yeah. As a matter of fact, we get a, a lot of medical professionals, doctors, looking into franchising with us. Um, in fact, after we get off this call, I'm going to be on the call with an orthopedist, and he wants to open a franchise.
That's a huge like franchisee to enter into your system just because I think we were talking about before like the best franchise systems like a lot of people were successful before they enter in and are bringing their know-how and it's kind of your job and the team and your team's job to facilitate and the information flow. But I imagine having an orthopedist as well as other successful entrepreneurs coming in from other profiles, Foot Solution will just get elevated for everyone.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The quality of the people that you invite into the system, because they are your teammates, and represent your brand. That makes all the difference in the world.
And when does it make sense to focus on international? I know you have a lot of experience in international business. You have a few international franchisees. Are you really like heads down on growing and developing in the U.S., or are you also entertaining entering some new markets in the world?
I wouldn't entertain any sort of one-off franchise locations overseas. We would be interested in selling territories to people who can develop it, but the low-hanging fruit is the U.S. market.
Any particular areas is like the Sunshine States where there's a lot of retirees?
Yeah, I used to say Phoenix, but it's 117 degrees here right now. We have a lot of good, successful locations in Phoenix. We have a lot in Florida. Yeah, I mean the older the population, generally speaking, you've got a bigger sort of target market.
And I've ordered shoes online. I don't know, maybe like twice out of my 200 plus shoe purchases in my life.
Well
And I
done. Yeah.
bad experience. The color wasn't right. The font size wasn't right. I'm just like, I'm done with this. I'd imagine you have that much more of a competitive moat against e-commerce because it's more customized for a lot of them, or it's just more specific.
Yeah, it's a great point, and it's something we always highlight. You can't do what we do on Amazon. It is a service business that happens to sell product. Even from a footwear perspective, we carry healthy footwear brands. Some brands you'd recognize, some brands you wouldn't. But we carry shoes that have a purpose, and so if you come into the store, even down to the kind of socks that we would sell you. So we developed a really high tech sock called Stradwell, and we've launched that into the stores just last month. But even down to the socks that you wear, it depends on what you select. It depending on your lifestyle, your body characteristics, all that, your gait cycle, the whole thing depends on what you put on and around your feet. So just going online and picking that out, unless you know what you're doing, is not as helpful for your body. It's not optimal for your health.
Yeah, I can imagine like it's I guess analogous to even well ski boots. I worked at a ski shop my first job, 16
Yeah,
years old, and like that's something that I would imagine most of the market is customized for ski boats, and it makes me wonder like why aren't just people doing that for all the different types of footwear, especially as you only wear your ski boots. You know, if you're like
yeah,
me,
because you see the results of it so quickly, right? If you wear if you wear the wrong ski boots, and one time I got somebody, a guy fit me, and it was like he got me in too skinny of a boot and just tore me up. And you know it within an hour, but when it comes to footwear, it might take you several years to realize, oh man, I have been hyperflexing my right knee all this time, and somebody could have put something right behind, my heel to pick it up a little bit, and then I wouldn't have had to have knee surgery. I mean, it is that simple in a lot of
stakes
cases.
are high.
Yeah, they really are.
John, any advice for prospective franchisees as they evaluate opportunities? And I know you bought the company at the franchisor level, but you've looked at hundreds, thousands of different of business models.
Yeah, and we were talking about this before we pressed record, so forgive me if I'm repeating, but we're not from the franchising world when we bought it. The more I learn about franchising, the more sort of skeptical I am about a lot of franchises, and I want to be careful and very diligent about not making the same mistakes or presenting ourselves in a way that we're not able to execute on. If you're looking at buying a franchise, though, for your listeners, Foot Solutions may not be the right one for you. In fact, Foot Solutions, you're not selling hamburgers, so you're not selling the same thing to a customer the next day. It takes a while actually to build a customer base at Foot Solutions. So you got to be comfortable not making a whole lot for the first few years to get one settled in. Now, our repeat customer rate is incredible. I mean, once you've got them, you got them, but it takes a while to get the customer base. But generally speaking, I would do a lot more diligence, I think, on the franchises that you're buying into. I would get to know personally the people that are trying to sell you a franchise. On the executive level, I would tell you it matters a great deal, the caliber of person that you're working with, the trustworthiness. In our five core principles, trustworthiness and sincerity are the most important. And so, from the beginning, from the first introductory call to the associate on the floor that sees the customer walking in, our core value is to be honest and sincere with that person. And that's important. Whatever franchise you're buying, you need to feel like, man, this is not just somebody pitching me an idea that's going to get them a nice check at the end of the day, but it's somebody who's going to really care about my success.
Yeah, and that's an issue. Like a
That's
lot of
hard.
times, the person selling the franchise like doesn't even work at the company. It's like an outsourced firm, and
Yeah,
the CEOs maybe is just going to be there for a year or two, and it's like people are coming and going, but you're signing an agreement for 10 years.
that's right. But yeah, it is. There's a lot more to consider, I think, than what is in the FDD. And as a matter of fact, you'll read the FDD and say, okay, well, the government said this is what they have to disclose, and so I'm good.
Yeah,
You need to dig in quite a bit more than that. When you do your reference calls, make sure you do them, but also, ask the people you're talking to, who else in the franchise should I speak with? Is there someone that they didn't put on this list, that I should talk to, and dig in a little deeper, because man, I can see. In fact, I walk by a lot of franchises. I can't imagine they're making money, but
no,
somebody I can tell that guy it looks like he put his life savings into this, and he's working the register. And I have a real heart for people like that. I mean, a lot of people bought Foot Solutions franchises that didn't work out. Um, I could say we've never sold any to anybody that we thought wasn't going to work out. But you have to be ready. You have to be competent. You have to be able to read a financial statement. If you cannot read a financial statement, you need
maybe
to
better
learn
start
how.
with a manager and then become an owner later on.
That's right. That's right. Or learn how to do it, or get some really good advice, because I've had conversations that ended pretty quickly, kindly, but pretty quickly, with potential franchisees who didn't know the difference between COGS and SG&A, and that's going to be real hard. It's going to be real hard to own a business if you haven't gotten the basics from a financial perspective. Not to say that people don't have life lessons that can't be good, but I would say this is your life savings in a lot of cases. This is your career.
You got to be all
You
in.
cannot just take the word of the guy who's pitching it to you.
And John, what key metrics, like a couple of metrics, are you really focused on, like daily or weekly at like the unit level? You mentioned like the customer retention rate super high. I'm sure you're
Mhm.
tracking that. Are there any other metrics that come to mind?
Yeah, well, we track customer 5-star reviews too. That's a big one for us. We have our annual convention coming up. We're giving out awards on customer service, and there's a lot of them. I'm real proud of the way we get good reviews. But from an economic perspective, I mentioned we try to keep your occupancy cost under 10% of your revenue. Your payroll costs should be about 20% or less of your revenue, and then your gross margin really ought to be over 60%. That really tells us whether or not you're focused on selling the right solution to the customer, because your staff can get a little bit lazy and say, all right, this person came in, I don't really want to do the whole analysis and the gate, let me just put you in a good shoe, and that's not what you're there for. You're there to
Yes.
really go through the thing and then give them the optimal tool. So we really focused on that. We're focused on average ticket values,
What is the
because
average
that
ticket?
average ticket, it depends on the store, but we're somewhere around $190
Solid.
on average ticket value. And so you're selling them footwear, which they can get anywhere, right? You're helping them pick out footwear, and it's the same that they're going to get on the internet typically in terms of pricing, and same they get down the street at another store. But what have you done on top of that? Have you given them the right sock? Have you given them a custom orthotic? Have if they can't afford a custom orthotic, did you spend some time with them to put them in the right over the counter insole? And if you've done that, then the ticket value is going to be pretty high.
Yeah, I just pulled up now when we were speaking your 5-star reviews. It's really across the country. They're doing really well. I mean, 4.8, 4.6, 167 reviews. And I've actually heard that Caldini said that wrote the book Influence said that like the best score on like a Google, you want to get 5-star reviews, but you want your business to be like 4.7, 4.8 because
Really?
doesn't 5 seems too good. I would
Yeah.
definitely distrust if there was 40
Yeah.
reviews and it was 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
4.8, I'll go to Foot Solutions on a 4.8. Well, John, what's the best way for people to reach out to you if they're interested in exploring a Foot Solutions franchise?
So footsolutions.com is the easiest way. All the way at the bottom is the franchising link. You can click on that link and reach out to us about franchising. That's probably the easiest way to do it. We have people that monitor the 888 fit and foot number. But the easiest way to do it is just drop us a note on the franchising thing. You also see videos from franchisees and learn a bit more about it so that you're educated before you think you want to do it.
We'll be sure to add the URL footsolutions.com/franchising so they can reach right back out. John, yeah, thanks for your time and sharing your knowledge about Foot Solutions as well as this industry.
I appreciate it, Patrick. Enjoyed talking to you.